Hi, I'm Michael, and this is my response to Sean Carroll's refutation of the fine-tuning argument. I would like to start off by stating that I'm at best an amateur physicist. Though I have a bachelor's in computer science, cosmology has always been a passion of mine, and I ultimately used cosmological and moral arguments to arrive at the destination of agnostic atheism despite being raised Christian. However, I don't believe Sean Carroll was being intellectually honest when he said that the fine-tuning argument is a terrible one, so today I want to provide a weak defense in support of fine-tuning's core features. I will preface my counterarguments with some important disclaimers. Firstly, it's worth delineating deism versus theism. Deism is the belief in a creator, but not any particular religion, whereas theism adds a personal component to this creator, which we most certainly do not have any clear evidence for. To be clear, the fine-tuning argument does not support a theistic view, but it could allow for a deistic entity to exist, which I believe Sean is mischaracterizing fine-tuning as supporting the former, a light strawmanning, if you will. Also, it's an extremely important caveat to point out that the fine-tuning argument does, in my view, positively hinge on our universe being the only universe, since an infinite number of universes would obviously then allow for every possible configuration of cosmological constants, and thus we would just so happen to be in one that supports life. My arguments henceforth are a naive view that take what we do know at face value, given that we just don't have a lot of information on this subject matter. So Sean's first argument is that the fine-tuning argument can't make the positive statement about the likelihood of life's existence being low because the likelihood for existence of life in general is not known, nor is a definition for life readily apparent, and that science fiction can readily imagine various forms of life even in extreme cosmological conditions. While I concede that this argument is true in the strictest sense, I believe this ignores the data. Though it may be tough to define life, what we do know is that we are a subset of it, and we are the only known source of it in the universe. I can agree that we are naive to the conditions for life as an abstract concept, but insofar as the facts are concerned as we know them, carbon-based life forms are the only known way life can exist, and thus we are one in infinity based on our data, which is sadly extremely limited at a sample size of 1, which Sean himself admits. We are certain that it is a rare phenomenon in our universe, and so we can postulate on what conditions might be necessary for human life in hypothetical other universes. For instance, if gravity were weaker, then galaxies would not form, and so human life would almost certainly not be feasible under those conditions. So taking a narrow view and only exploring the known facts for our specific universe, life as we know it is rare and unlikely. I don't think that saying we don't know is equivalent to a refutation of this aspect of the argument, especially when given the data we do have. 2. Sean argues that a deistic entity is not required for fine-tuning because such an entity could have accomplished the task of life regardless of universal cosmology. I don't think there's much to say here. The fine-tuning argument doesn't try and stipulate exactly how a given creator would construct such a universe. It merely posits that life in general is probably unlikely in any given configuration of a universe. Ironically, if we take Sean's argument to the extreme, then a creator would be more probable even in a multiverse if every universe could support life in some fashion. The reason this is ironic is because Sean's first argument is essentially that life could exist in other ways in other universes, making our configuration not special. But if life can exist in every universe, then the fine-tuning argument is strong for the very reason it's strong if there's only one universe. 3. Sean states that the parameters might be found to be probabilistically locked into their current values, such as the rate of the expansion of the universe. I can see that this is a very good counterpoint, as if proven true, it would certainly disprove fine-tuning, but again it relies on data that we just don't yet have. Given that the possibility exists that the cosmological constants might be allowed to exist or not exist to arbitrary degrees of strength, fine-tuning can't be ruled out. 4. This is Sean's strongest argument against fine-tuning, as I alluded to in my preface, but yet again it relies on unknown information, that we live in a multiverse. Of course, the fine-tuning argument also hinges on unknown information, but at least it is not making assumptions about the multiverse, so ultimately I think the strength of Sean's counterpoint inherently hinges on a positive statement which is yet to be known, thus making it weak since it now has the burden of proof. My personal views on this are that the multiverse probably does exist, so... Anyway, 5. I believe this argument is Sean's weakest since it tries to postulate under what parameters a deity would ideally construct a universe, which is of course unknowable. Sean tries to say that life is insignificant so far as the universe is concerned, which I think ignores the possibility that this could be a creator's metaphorical allegory for his greatness compared to us, or whatever. Maybe the billions upon billions of years prior to life represent his eternal features, and the larger magnitude of years thereafter are a testament to eternal damnation. It's absurd to postulate this point. To conclude, I think Peter Millikan does this argument much better justice, namely by pointing out that the fine-tuning argument hinges on unknown physics and thus is a weak argument, to which I concede. Overall, though it is a weak argument, I do believe it is potentially falsifiable and thus scientific, and should therefore be given more credibility than currently afforded by modern atheistic thinkers. A couple more unique arguments I've seen against the fine-tuning argument are those posed by Planet Peterson, whose podcast I've almost listened to in entirety and whom I hold in high regard. Check him out, he's great. Namely, one, that we have a natural bias to view life as something special simply because we are life. Though this is obviously true, I relate back to my argument regarding the known probability of life, at least within our universe existing, which is verifiably rare. There aren't any other astronomical features I can think of that are as rare, so even a neutral view would have to concede that it is seemingly special in a quote objective unquote sense if rarity or unlikelihood can be used as a metric for that. Which again might just be human intuition failing me, but who knows? It's kind of hard to argue in any other framework. Ironically, I think this is the same argument as Sean Carroll's fifth point flipped on its head. The inefficiency that Peter Millikan describes, with which a creator might have formulated humans, might again just be a sort of self-justification written in the stars for the notion that life is indeed special given its lack of abundance. 2. Eric says here that concluding a creator to justify life is committing a Texas sharpshooter fallacy by painting the bullseye of a creator's dart around life. But to me, this is simply stating the obvious, in that life postulating life is predicated on its existence. Of course, we wouldn't be able to know how other darts may have been thrown, since by virtue of speaking on it, we are one of the darts. I don't think that precludes the possibility of imagining how big the dartboard is, or where other darts may have been able to land. Finally, to be clear on my personal thoughts on the matter, I think the simulation hypothesis by Nick Bostrom, which Planet also brought up, is more logically sound, which would also lend support to some notion of a creator, even if it is just more apes in higher universes. I am new to this, so let me know if I've made any logical errors, so I can correct those, and more importantly, update my internal view of the fine-tuning argument. And if you like the content, also let me know if I should make more videos. Thanks.